Every Southern family has a recipe for country fried steak, also known as chicken fried steak and gravy. What makes it so special is everyone has a family blend of seasonings for their steak and gravy. Today, I'll show you my version of this classic dish that you can make your very own. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Let's Celebrate TV. I'm your host, Peter Lee. On this channel, we teach you all about celebrating. We share recipes for food, hors d'oeuvres, cocktails, and we share entertaining tips too. Now we try and keep everything as simple as we can, especially for those of you out there who say you just can't cook or entertain, because we know that you really can. So if you like this episode, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and you'll get a new episode every single week. Today, our celebration is by special request. A viewer wrote in and asked for this recipe. We're making country fried steak, also known as chicken fried steak. So let's get started. I've got a whole spread here, but let's start with the steak part. Country fried steak is made with cube steak, and that's what I have here. I've got about a pound, which is about 450 grams. What is cube steak? Cube steak is made from one of the cheaper cuts of beef, usually from the round, which is the back part here on the haunch. It's economical, we'll say. And what the butcher does is they run it through a machine that tenderizes it and gives it that little cube-like texture on it, and it makes it very tender. You can usually find this in any grocery store. If for some reason you couldn't, you could just get some round steaks and tenderize them yourself with a meat tenderizer. But really, why when you can find this? Now, chicken fried steak or country fried steak, it's fried. Behind me in my cast iron skillet, I've got a couple centimeters or half an inch of vegetable oil just heating up. I want to ultimately get it to 375 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 190 Celsius. So that's heating gently in the background. Now we're going to dredge it. We need to add some flavorings. So first I have some flour, 2 cups, 250 grams. I'm just going to add some spices, and we're just going to do tablespoons, which why convert to shillings, farthings, or whatever, when even in the UK or other parts of the world, a tablespoon is a tablespoon, pretty much. We're going to start with cornstarch. I've got 2 tablespoons right into the flour. This is going to help the coating be light and crispy. Next, 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. I'm using dried powder because they'll hold up to frying better than if I use fresh garlic or fresh herbs. Next is celery salt, 1 teaspoon, tablespoon, something, 1 tablespoon. Poultry seasoning. This is my special little touch. I want to give the chicken fried steak that little extra flavor. Poultry seasoning is a mixture of thyme and nutmeg and sage. If you couldn't find it, you could just use ground sage. Now the last bit I have is cayenne pepper. Just a pinch. This is optional. You could add more if you like it hotter. You could leave it out altogether. I like just the little bit of background heat this is going to give. Just going to mix this up with my little tiny whisk here. Just enough to get it combined. Pretty easy. Mixy, mixy. All right. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to dredge our flour. And we're not going to do a really thick coating, but we're going to do dry, wet, dry. So for the wet part, I have in this dish 3 eggs and a splash of milk. Just beat them up. Simple. So we'll start with a piece of the steak. You see how tender it is. It almost falls apart in your hands. A light dredge. We're not doing a big thick batter, but just a light dredge, just like that. light dip into the egg. Pretty easy so far. And then back in the flour. And that is going to form a nice crunchy coating on our steak. And we'll put this aside, my little rack here. And you can make this a little bit of ahead of time, so if it sits for, 15 or 20 minutes, that's okay. I'll do another one. All right, easy, easy. All right. One more. Now the great thing about this recipe is you can adjust it however you like. You could change the flavorings with the seasonings. You could use buttermilk. You could make it spicier. It's all about your imagination. All right. Now, these are done. I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to clean this up, and then we're going to fry. Now, important step. Hold on to this flour. We're going to use it later in the gravy. Alrighty, now we're ready to start frying. So I brought my oil over and I've got my frying station set up. We're going to check the temperature of our oil. We're looking for 375 Fahrenheit or 190 Celsius. And we've got it. Actually a little bit more, which is fine because it'll cool down. So carefully, as always, place this in the hot oil away from you so it doesn't splatter. Now you may have to do this in batches, which I'm going to have to do today, but that's okay because this goes really fast. These steaks only take a couple of minutes on each side to fry and get cooked. And what we're looking for is a nice golden brown. Lovely. Alrighty, we're ready to turn. Lovely. This will just take another moment on this other side. You may see when you're frying, you may see some juices coming out. That's okay. It'll be fine. All right, this is ready to come out and we'll keep going. Now I'm placing these on some paper towels to drain. Maybe these next two I can fit in. Yeah, they're a little better shape. Now this wasn't as dramatic. The oil came down a little bit in temperature, so let's crank up the heat. All right, these are all done, ready to come out. All right. Now, here we go. Gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. I'm going to take these over and put them in a warm oven, and they'll keep nice and warm, and they'll drain. And then it's time to make the gravy. So off to a warm oven. And here we are ready to make the gravy. In my pan, I've drained out all the oil except for about 2 tablespoons. Now I've left all the little brown bits in, the fond, because that's going to add a lot of flavor. So let's get it back on some heat. To that hot oil, I'm going to add some flour. Now this is the seasoned flour. I've got about 3 tablespoons here. I'm just going to start adding it a little at a time. Sometimes you need it all, sometimes you don't. But anyway, what we're going to do is make a roux. And we need to just mix this into the hot oil, and it's going to form a paste. And that's what we want because it's going to be the thickener for our gravy. All right, we need all of that flour. We're just going to let this go for a few minutes. it'll start to tighten up. And it's going to be the basis of the flavor. Now I'm using that seasoned flour because why not? It has all the garlic and cayenne and poultry seasoning and good stuff in it. We're going to let this cook just for a minute or two, not to get it browner, but we want to cook that raw flour taste out. So you don't want your gravy tasting like raw flour. Give it a little stir. Okay, here we go. My flour is tightening up. I've got all the flour taste cooked out of it. Now we're going to add some milk. I've got 2 cups or 475 milliliters of whole milk. Please use whole milk, not skim, not 2%, not almond milk, real whole milk. I'm going to start adding this in slowly, and we're going to stir constantly. Stir it up. And the rest. Alrighty. Now we're just going to stir this up, bring it up to a boil, and it'll start to thicken. But it's not going to be a very thick gravy at first. It's actually going to be thin while it's hot. Once it starts to cool down a little bit, it'll thicken up. All right, now I'm going to taste this for seasoning. It's starting to bubble. I'm actually going to turn it off because the residual heat in the pan will keep it cooking. Let's give it a little taste for seasoning. That's really good. Believe it or not, it needs a little more salt and pepper. Even with that seasoned flour. All right. I'll just stir this up just to keep it smooth. This also will not be a silky smooth gravy like you might be thinking, or like a jus. It's going to have some heft to it. And that's what we want. Now see, it's already thickening up. Now if you want it, if you liked even a little extra heat, you could put some hot sauce in this part too. Alrighty, this looks beautiful. So now I'm going to go get my steaks out of the oven, and then we're going to do the tasting. All right, here we have for the tasting. I've got a steak out on a plate and this lovely thick gravy. Now cool down a little bit and it's thickened up. Just going to spoon some over the top. Now if you made this, what would you serve it with? Traditionally it's usually served with mashed potatoes, which is always a classic. And you can take this gravy and the seasoning in the dredge. You can take it in any direction you want. But this is mine and I can't wait to taste it. So let's tuck in. Very tender. That's so good. You really get all that garlic and a little hint of cayenne pepper, just enough to tickle the back of the palate. Comfort food. That's what this is. Pure comfort food. A little sip of wine, as always. Delicious. Now, as always, we're going to have this recipe up in the comment section on YouTube and on our website. And remember, like I always tell you, we'll see you again next Tuesday at 7 p.m. because you're all invited to come on over, come on in, and let's celebrate. Cheers.